All right, folks, we're back with another edition of the Red and White Podcast, post-game edition. A little late, but better than never. We beat Liberty in the Fighting Hugh Freezes. Will, how do you feel about that?
Feeling good. Coming here hot and fresh from the kitchen tonight, so the takes will be hot and tasty.
I think your tweet after the game, I was trying to think of the way to say it. I was trying to think of, I knew what you were getting at. And I just couldn't get my words out right. And you said it perfectly. And you said that was the most anti-NC State shit, but practically NC State shit win in history. And I was like, that's it. That's exactly right. I just couldn't figure out how to say that. I was trying to think of the same thing. I was like, nailed it. That's great.
After tweets like that just get like a little bit of likes, I always want to write, like, I don't have anything to promote.
But you do. You do have something to promote.
Well, I was waiting to crack 200 to really drop it down. I don't know. There's a few more likes today. Maybe I'll... I just always love that. Wow, this really blew up. And I always wanted to do that when like 20 people like something.
Here you go. Here's your chance. But yeah, I mean, it was it. The game was ugly. I've tried to watch it back and I just couldn't do it. I started, I was paying in and out of attention. It was not good, man.
I got through halftime and then I was like, I can't possibly watch what this turns into.
Yeah, it was sloppy. It was a mess. The offense has carried this team all year, and for once, the defense carried it. Liberty just I don't know what was going on with the offense, but Liberty just had them figured out, and the defense actually carried them. I think that was the biggest takeaway from all this. My question is that did the defense turn the corner, or is that just anomaly?
I think partly it was motivation, right? Like they saw what happened to VT when they didn't take them seriously. Two, I think it was a game plan that fits the Doran scheme. They can take on athletic quarterbacks that aren't good passers. The key for them is to not Derek King it, where all of a sudden they become world beaters overnight. With their deep balls, and it just ruins the plan. So everything kind of worked out in their favor. The pressure that they were getting on him, I don't know if it was just because they were playing an I don't want to say FCS because it's not accurate, but a lower tier D1 offensive line allowed our guys to eat. I mean, we haven't seen our defensive line look that active, I'd say most of the season, really, aside from maybe the FSU game.
My biggest takeaway, I think, from the defense after thinking about this was everybody seemed to do their job, right? Dave Doran says, do your job, right? That's his thing. It's like, do what you're supposed to do. And you had guys doing that. I mean, and outside of the pass interference penalties, defense was pretty clean. And the guys did their jobs. The linebackers, did what they were supposed to. Peyton didn't do anything stupid. He didn't overrun plays. Like you said, the defensive line was able to control what they needed to do. The secondary, the guys were on them. Tyler Baker-Williams played great, made plays. He covered the things, and they did the things that they were supposed to do. And that was the biggest takeaway for me, is seeing that and that's what they're supposed to do. That's what the defense is supposed to look like. I don't know how much of that is playing, like you said, a group of five school, or how much of that is, hey, they actually did what they were supposed to for once. Everybody did.
Yeah.
And didn't do anything boneheaded.
I think, now I will say there were a couple plays where they did kind of make some mistakes. I don't know if he was alluding to the same one as the one I'm thinking of, but one of Willis's touchdowns, they called a blitz, and I think both linebackers overran it. And Peyton was the one actually that I noticed that kind of ran. Someone made a really good point. I don't know who it was. But maybe because he is so tall, maybe he can't really change direction as quickly. And that was one of those ones where you saw it. It might have been the first touchdown, actually.
It was, yeah. He bit on the run just a little bit too long, and he kind of stepped up and they threw it over top of him. I thought
yeah. And the reason I was calling that out is I think during his press conference today, Doran kind of talked about that one specifically. He's like, we schemed that one up. We practiced it a bunch. We were hitting it every time in practice. And then someone loses, I think he called it loses eye contain or something like that. Basically just took their eye off the right play or the right player. and the result was a touchdown. And that kind of just, there's been a couple times this season. I also saw it in the some NFL games this weekend, right? Like if one guy, I don't know if you watched the end of that Chiefs Raiders game, but one guy gets pulled slightly out of position because he sees Mahomes running, and instead of trusting the probably 5 other guys that could hit him, he leaves his man Kelsey wide open in the end zone, and it's game over. And if the pros are doing it, the college guys on limited schedule are going to do it, but for the most part, we held up for the most of the game. I still cannot believe we won 15-14. I thought that was going to be like a 34-33 type kind of game.
I'm guessing that nobody took the under. Like, of any of the listeners, of any of the big bettors, I don't think anybody's taken under in that game. There's just no way that you saw that game and thought, hey, this is going to be under 67. Like, not by that much, at least. It was crazy. And part of the reason why is just the mental breakdown, like the offensive mental breakdown, especially offsides, false starts, unsportsmanlike conducts, freaking leaping.
Man,
like those are all mental discipline penalties. And State right now is 124th in the nation in penalty yardage per game. Like, that to me seems like the exact opposite of what Dave wants his programs to be.
You know what that game reminded me of? I think it was a Finley era team. Maybe it was Jacoby. But Syracuse came to Raleigh, and like we had multiple, I think, wide receivers on their team, either like tried to punch our guys or it was their DBs. Yeah. And it just reminded me, I can't remember what the name of that coach was. That was the guy there at the time. But it was clear he was like, you got to play not just with an edge, but like over the line. And, that's what it feels like this year. And it's kind of weird. I don't know if Gibson and them are doing it to kind of overcompensate to where, hey, if we're not going to get to the quarterback, we better make the receivers be worried when the ball gets near them. I just can't explain. I mean, I've never seen this many targeting penalties. I mean, just stupid things like rooks. Like, Rooks, we didn't see what happened prior to it. But, I mean, what football player has ever succeeded in punching a guy through the face mask? It's just stupid.
Yeah, that's one of the dumbest penalties of all, is like punching a helmet. Like, why would you do that? It's not going to be effective. You're just going to get in trouble. It's always a retaliator too. But I think like that had to have been part of Liberty's game plan, is to just, or maybe that's just who they are, talk enough trash to get under our skin, right? And get State out of their game. And that had to have been the whole pregame thing where they came out and, like, air quotes, did their prayer on the toughie. Like, that has to be part of it. It was a mental game. And you saw what happens. They broke down mentally. Our guys were just not there mentally.
Yeah,
it was really weird.
I thought, wasn't there something pregame saying they were like stomping the logo or something like that? And then, I'm just, stuff like that.
That was like 2 hours. 2 hours before the game.
Yeah, too. And then they're like, they're like praying, and I'm just like, Liberty is a fake school, and like I cannot believe that they're actually saying prayers out there. But there was a part of me too that was like, I wonder if they're kind of sacrificing to something to the football gods right there, right on top of the logo. But that's, they were kind of playing some mental warfare.
They definitely were.
Here's the thing: State used to do that stuff too. Not the stomping of the logo stuff, but it's not. Don't act like J Sam and those guys were just innocent football players out there. Like J Sam had a motor mouth, trying to get guys to tee off on him, and that's smart. That's just what better programs do, and that's Hugh Freeze bringing a little bit of that SEC mentality down there, right? I mean, was he the coach there when the guy did the dog urination in the end zone, or was that after he got booted?
I was after.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Like that's kind of instilled in players down there. And to their credit, like they got us to look like idiots. If we didn't have so many penalties, I mean, I think Steve Williams at IPS like noted it. Like I think there were like 5 straight first downs that ended in like no yards, and we were like 2nd and 10, 2nd and 20, 2nd and 30. there was a lot of dumb going on, and I do wonder if this game looks completely different for Hawkman and everyone else if they were ever on schedule. Because it seemed like they'd string together a down or two and then it would just fall apart.
I think that was part of, like you said, I think that was Hugh Freeze's mentality. He knew that we make a lot of mistakes. We knew that they're young and, you get under their skin early and you make a team. Like, maybe I'm giving them too much credit, but I really think that was, that's part of their plan, because you could tell that was the way they were playing. And it had an effect on us, but still, State's 124th in penalty yardage. They got to clean that up. It's amazing where they are right now, given that they're sloppy and inconsistent for the most part. I think Steve Williams also said he said a little paragraph here. Sitting at 6-3, I still don't know what I could say about the Pack has played a complete game. I would argue that we haven't seen the best from this team. Who would have thought, with your starting QB out, down to basically 6 offensive linemen and a patchwork secondary made up of walk-ons and underclassmen, you'd be looking at 8 or 9 win season. And that's exactly it. This team is held together, unlike last year where they fell apart. I think that's a big difference in where we are and where the kind of the program is. The schedule's not great. I get that. But still, you lose these close games before, and we've won a few of them this year, and we've beaten, decent teams winning close.
Yeah,
I think that's a big testament, I think.
Yeah, I think one factor is having gone through last year. This isn't all those freshmen, right? I mean, it's still a young team, but they had a lot of scars. They've been spending a lot of time together this offseason. They're playing, one guy goes out, specifically the safety, who just can't seem to keep his ass into the game. And they make a few slip ups back there adjusting, but then you've got White and Duffy and these guys making, having game changing plays back there too. So, I think everything's kind of stepping up. Quarterback play, I think we'd all admit, none of these games are probably happening. These good kind of what I call upper tier games for Hawkman, they're not happening last year. I mean, he just doesn't have the makeup at all. He doesn't have the OC to put him in a position to win. I guess we're just going to kind of sit back and wonder, why what was it about this game in particular and this defense that gave him trouble? Is it just that they really sat back in that kind of deeper zone? Why would we expect Syracuse not to do the same thing, or Georgia Tech, right? If I just saw this guy struggle that badly, I guess what I'm saying is, can Beck figure out a way to get back and get the positive scripts for Hawkman so that he's in a position to not repeat a 15-point performance game?
Yeah, we'll talk about the offense in a minute. The defense, I want to start with the defense. Well, I want to start with Liberty. First of all, I don't think they're not. I mean, they're well coached. I don't think they're one of the better top 25 teams that we've seen, but they're still going to end up 9-2 probably after losing to Coastal. That's a good win, man. I'm happy they won. I think Vi Jones saved Dave Dorn a lot of grief by winning that game, by blocking that kick. I think he would have gotten a lot of grief just because of the way that game went.
Yeah, that would have been a nightmare scenario. I mean, as it was happening, it was a tough game to watch, but just the final few minutes, and, we can ice that drive out with the run game. It's 3rd and 2. And then, of course, we get a false start. I mean, that's what I meant with that tweet, where it was just every possible chance for State to crap the bed, we practically did until the final play. And, all that matters in the end, I don't think any of us probably, the next week or two, we're going to remember this, but I guarantee you next year, no one's going to be even talking about this game. In this manner, right? We're just going to be remembering it, be what hell of a play, terrible night, we won, it's his best win ever, but it's so funny because it's all these people are hey, if he wins out, Doran gets coach of the year. But I wonder, hold on.
Coach of the year. I'll keep going because if he wins out 8-3, given projected mostly dead last, the ACC network was making fun of us and how many wins they were going to have. I can't think of who would be a better coach of the year. Now I can see the ACC writers and media pooping on us and giving it to Brian Kelly or Mac Brown or, somebody else, but Dorn would deserve that in my opinion.
Yeah, and what I was going to say, sorry, the the mailman chose the perfect time to come up during that. Is I was just going to say it's going to be ironic that if he does win Coach of the Year, like I think a lot of us are going to remember this game as like one of the worst coached games of the year, and you're like, can you really be Coach of the Year after just letting that type of game happen? Not just from like just poor offensive production, but just the penalties, the lack of discipline, the 2-point conversion attempt. Like, I agree. Like, this has been a great year so far. I mean, 2 weeks ago, I said we were only winning one game the rest of the way. So obviously my expectations have been exceeded. I think he's done a hell of a job. I will be so furious if Brian Kelly or Mac Brown gets Coach of the Year, because Brian Kelly is doing what Brian Kelly should be doing. Like, Brian Kelly basically has had, I think we all knew, like Clemson and maybe UNC would be the struggle games. We'll see what happens this Friday. I think they play. So that would maybe settle that. But, Dorn's still going to go and like clean up on the 2 last duds of the schedule. And Georgia Tech's been off for like 4 weeks. So who knows how much, they've just been watching tape. What are they going to do when we get a crack at them as well? But, I mean, I can't believe we're 6-3. I'm super happy. Part of me is going to kind of go back and be like, oh, we should be 7-2.
Certainly.
But you got to let it go.
So we'll jump to the offense. Keeps coming up. Tim Beck could say he had a bad night. Probably his worst. Right. My thinking was, or thinking is basically like he just had an off day. Like the game plan wasn't good, and he didn't have it. And I think that happens to everybody. I think he's earned enough respect or enough leeway, given how well the offense has been all year, to say, all right, he had a bad day, put it behind him. But there was a couple times, man, you're like, what in the world are you doing? And in particular, like I said, that 2-point play. I still don't understand what you're thinking. That could have lost us the game, right? Because if they run a normal play, let's say to maybe your 6'7" tight end that they really can't guard, and you convert that, you're up 3, and they kick that field goal if it doesn't get blocked, and it's a tie game, right? Instead, they try a throwback to Icky, and somebody, it might have been James on the IPS, had said, well, it's if the defensive guy does this and this, then this play works. It's like, well, no shit. That's how football works. It works if everybody does what you want them to do, but that's not how defense is. And it was just terrible play call, and he didn't have it.
Well, it's funny. Dorn was laughing during his press conference because he says that they've run that play for 7 weeks in practice. He scored every single time. It's always worked. And I'm like, okay, well, either the scout team is terrible. It can't beat you every time in there unless they're like basically like you have to simulate, I guess, this exact type scenario. But they're, I don't know if Hugh Freeze and them were smart and just knew it was like something was weird was going on. Maybe I don't know if they declared him on any other extra point attempts, so maybe it wasn't that subtle. But it is such a critical play. And you've got, Bam Knight's doing great on the ground. You've got Person. You've got Thayer Thomas. You have freaking Kerry Angeline, who can catch anything down there. And you opt to throw, like, off the back foot across field to the offensive tackle. I mean, it was just such a dumb decision. Like, I get it when you're playing a bad ECU team or something like that. I get the trickeration then. I could get it like if it was like second or third quarter, but that score is so critical to the success of that game. And to just put it, I guess in their minds, they're like, well, this play has been 100% every time we've run it. But like, how many times have you run it when it's the fourth quarter, you guys are, exhausted from like a slugfest I'm just not surprised. I was surprised that we did it, but I was not surprised that it failed. And it was just stuff like that where it's like, we're losing this game. And then we would get an interception. I'd be like, we're winning this game. It's just a hard game emotionally.
It was up and down. Backing out one from Tim Beck's awful day. Part of people say is, hey, you take what the defense gives you, right? But at what point do you take what you want, right? If you're State, aren't you supposed to be, better athletically to be able to do more of what you want against a team like Liberty? To me, that's where my mind keeps going. It's like, okay, you take what they give you, but why couldn't you take more, right? Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, it makes complete sense. I mean, I think the problem is we were taking ourselves out of it so constantly with the holding, the false. I mean, like, here's the thing. I don't understand how you get false starts when the crowd. I mean, maybe there was some Liberty contingent there that was making noise, but in reality, like, it's a quiet stadium. The snap count. Either Bailey's calling out that a hard count's coming. Like, I mean, just stuff like that where you're just like, I get it. You got backups in, guys are playing out of position, they're tired, but god dang, like, all you got to do is just put it together for a drive and you can put these guys away. There
was one point where the whole offensive line jumped and the center didn't snap the ball. Like, typically it's one guy and you're thinking, okay, that guy didn't know the snap count. But the center should know the snap count. Everybody else did, but he did not snap the ball. I'm like, what is happening here? What is that?
Grant Gibson is playing chess within checkers within chess. Like, he's just playing a completely different game on that snap. I don't know how that happens. I mean, I guess, like, the thing is you take away is, like, that's got to be the worst offensive performance of the year by far. And, you got bailed out. I really want to see what this team looks like when all three phases are playing, because this was really just a one phase game. People are going to give special teams credit, I guess, the punt for the punting, but the best punt of the day was from the quarterback.
Crazy.
But again, I guess that's technically special teams. But what I'm saying is, like, Dunn misses that field goal, right? Like, that game's also different if we get that field goal. We don't win that game without a safety. Like, it was just the defense did everything this game. So, like, kudos to them. I'm not gonna chide them too much. I'm really frustrated with Beck's game plan, but we'll move on. Maybe Liberty just did something they did not expect. I think the IPS podcast made a good point today that they were supposedly playing this deeper coverage, so they were kind of playing like UVA's defense, but even deeper. And the way we attacked that defense was to try to go over the top of it. And you're not going to really do that with Bailey Hockman's arm. So maybe they were just caught in no man's land. And, then the penalties just didn't help. So I don't know. I just want to flush that game.
Well, Grant Gibson did not have a good game. Tony Gibson had a really good game. No relation there, by the way. The funny thing is, in our chat, we were talking – chat was talking pretty much all day on Saturday, and we were ready to hire Charlie. Like, we came to determine that Charlie Strong would have been the best defensive hire we could think of, and we were ready to hire him on the spot. He's currently at Alabama as an analyst, and he's a 3.35 guy. But Tony Gibson, man, it figures that the one game that the defense really shined was the day we had all fired him in our chat.
Well, I was not a participant in that because someone has to be, I guess, Switzerland in these debates. I mean, the key is always going to be for Gibson's defense. Do you get turnovers? And we said going into the game, I thought fumbles were going to be what we were looking for, because Malik Willis had one interception on 15 touchdown passes and however many scrambles he had for touchdowns. Like, that was the 1% scenario showing up on defense from a turnover perspective, and it was purely welcome. And kudos to the defensive line and those guys keeping the pressure. For the most part, the guys didn't get caught up in the wash on any kind of like pick plays. They didn't bite any of the double moves. Maybe you'd like to see some of the pass interference calls, one or two of them at least, kind of go away, because we were we weren't innocent probably in any of them, but I also thought that the refs were playing calling such a tight game in that aspect, for us at least. But, I mean, he got the interceptions, which makes Gibson look great because it eliminates the number of plays that the offense gets. And, it's not often that you have, I think we were +2 on turnover margin, and you only win by 1 point. So, they did their job. I mean, I don't know. I think we all said coming into that game, like, that was Beck's going to have to do everything. And, I just want to see it again, I guess. Syracuse isn't that sharp of a team. So can Gibson kind of give us multiple games in a row where the defense is clicking? And maybe we get to see that full game that we're asking for.
I hope so. We have not seen it yet, but I hope so. I'm going to play a couple clips. I always like to pull in the national media and what they think of us, and then we have two drastically different perspectives. So here's the Yahoo Sports College Podcast. Pete Thamel.
Something nice about NC State, which it quietly amid this pandemic has had a really solid season. They're 6-3. They beat Liberty 15-14 on Saturday night on a blocked field goal. And look, if you are sort of a perpetually middling program like NC State is, one of these places that's not a blue blood, but they're not bad. They're not a basement dweller either. They're coming off a bad year. Like, I give these programs credit for having the pride to gut through and play. Because look, we're not going to have a ton of bowl games. So, like, you are literally just kind of playing for pride. Right now, they've rattled off a bunch of wins in a row. 2 wins in a row. And I just really think with the backup quarterback, Bailey Hockman, they've just had a nice professional season. And I kind of looked at last night. I was like, man, they've won 6 games this year. That's surprising. I think a lot of people thought this could be the dying breaths of Dave Doran there, and instead, they've shown they have good culture. They've kept things together, and they won 15-14 against the ranked Liberty Flames, handing Hugh Freeze his first loss of the year.
All right, I'm going to say something nice about Lovie Smith.
Lovie Smith.
Yeah,
I didn't expect that. I thought he was going to say something about Liberty when he said L.
Yeah, I messed up with a clip in that one, but Pete Thamel has never. I put this out there before. He always uses NC State about when he's looking for an analogy of, a program in the middle, and he even said it there, middling program. Like, it's always his go-to analogy. And I called him on it one day. He's like, I don't even know how to do it. That's what he does. That's just, but so the fact that he gave us a little positive press there, I think that's good. On the other hand, the Cover 3 podcast had a different story.
Yeah. The other one that was disappointing was Liberty and NC State didn't even threaten the over. No. I couldn't get eyes on that. I couldn't get it on my. Did you have it in your area, Chip or Tom?
Yeah. It was on the regional sports networks, and so that here it was on Marquee, which is the network that brought the Cubs network. But yeah, I was able to watch it. It was it's not an entertaining game.
No, it was pretty boring. And I mean, props to NC State. Like, I kind of feel like NC State found itself very early in a game. Like, Bailey Hockman is a limiting factor. After all the flowers that we gave to Bailey Hockman for the way that he had played over the last couple of weeks, he made some bad throws in this game that prevented NC State from winning more handily, but it would not have helped the over. I mean, this game very early on was a little bit rock fighty.
Yeah, I tweeted this stat earlier tonight, but now after tonight's win, NC State is 6-3 on the season with a point differential of -2. Fraudulent.
Don't be careful saying that, man. This team's about to finish 8-3, and wait until you hear
with a point differential of 0.
So they've got the blowout loss to North Carolina. So what else is on there messing up their point differential?
They had that blowout. Yeah, let me see here.
Let's see.
They tend to lose big. They had the blowout loss. They lost to Virginia Tech by 21. They lost to UNC by 27. Miami, they only lost by 3, but it's like when you look at their wins, they got the 3-point win over Wake, a 1-point win over Pitt, the 1-point win over Liberty.
Oh, suck a dick.
Yeah, they win close, they lose big. But they won close this weekend.
Fraudulent.
I think it was a good win for Double D.
Extend him.
Yeah, get him now. Get him now before someone else does.
Those recruits, they want to know how long he signed for.
I mean, Tennessee already called once, right? You got to extend him just in case Tennessee calls again.
I mean,
that's your nightmare.
Two things in there. Yeah. Chip Patterson, I really like, even though it turns out he's a Tar Heel. He went to Tar Heels. I went to Carolina for.
Now, which one was Chip?
He was the one that said Bailey Hockman is a limiting factor.
Oh, okay.
He's the main host, I guess. But he's right. He said Bailey Hockman is a limiting factor. I think we've kind of seen that. I'm going to walk back, maybe not walk back, but I think, previously I said if Bailey wins out, you're going to see him being the starter next year. And that has finally, I think this game right here is the one you're going to point to and say that no, he's not going to be. And if he is, everybody is going to riot, because you look at a game like this and be like, no, Leary's your starter. Stop messing around, Dave. Don't be dumb. Like all those things.
You definitely see the limitations. I will say this, I didn't realize I was not on mute when I called out that bullshit argument there. Just because you have 2 blowout losses does not mean the rest of your wins are fraudulent. Both of those losses. Well, Virginia Tech was ranked, I think, at the time. 1, there was no film. 2, and we're not going to dive any further into that stupid game. But we've faced 5 ranked opponents, and we are 2 and 3 against them. Which, for a program coming off of last year, that is incredible success. I don't care where they're ranked at the end of the season, because there's all kinds of stuff that can kind of factor into that. So I don't think it's fraudulent. Just because, you lost the UNC game after Leary got injured and 2 key critical players were missing from your defense, and Virginia Tech had 2 people out that were of any importance, it's easy to see why those games happened the way they did. So
I don't really understand. I mean, obviously I know what point differential is, but I don't understand the context and why that was important. Like that we win close games.
Yeah.
Cool, you won close games. You won 3 of them.
You win close games and you lose close games throughout the whole season, right? And then you have a point differential of like +3, -3 at the end of the year. That doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The W's, as long as your win column is positive differential, that's all that really matters. I mean, I think if that guy had dug into the numbers just slightly, he would have thought more of like, okay, let me eliminate the UNC game from this equation. And then you're +19 or whatever that comes out to be, so right. Just a strange take.
Yeah, that was Tom Fernelli, and I give him credit because he watched the game.
I did.
So,
what did he say?
Painful.
It was a rock fight.
Well, that was Chip Patterson called it very rock fighty, which is
that's a good term. I want to remember that one.
It is a good term. But yeah, like I wanted to play that because that was the other side of it. I just don't understand why winning close games is an issue, especially when you do it.
Let me ask you this: if we win the next 2 games, big if, I just feel like we got a loss brewing inside of us somewhere. Are we ranked going into bowl season? At 8-3?
They should be. There's no telling if they will. But we had this conversation in the chat. They'll be 8-3. But if you look, and they're 34th right now. But if you look at who's ranked ahead of them, there's like Memphis is 0-2 and ranked ahead of us. Like there's teams that it makes no sense how they're going to rank things at the end of the year. But I would say if they win these next 2 at the end of the regular season, it's hard to say that they're not top 25.
Yeah.
Just that'd be hard to say. I think that'd be disingenuous if somebody puts, some of these other teams that have not played as much and have not won as much ahead of them. I think that'd be crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you have to wonder. I mean, like I watched Indiana this weekend, for example, and their defense is really good. Like, props to that aspect, but their offense is terrible. And they've played Penn State, Michigan, and I think maybe Michigan State too. I mean,
Penn State,
yeah, like they've gotten every program that looks like they did not do well during COVID.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm really interested to see how it turns out. Wisconsin's 2-1 right now. USC is 3-0. Like, fine. I mean, like, this just proves to me that there is just absurd amount of bias out there, that you're not making these other teams earn it as the schedule progresses. Like, if State, let's say we hold serve for 8-3, right, while the rest of these guys are playing out their schedule behind us. If that got us up to like top 20, and then by the end of the year, there was just like a clear group of schools that were better than us, and it slid us down the top 20 or out of it, like, I wouldn't care. Like, but Texas is 5-2 and they're ranked 20th right now. Come on.
Yeah. There's no consistency to it. It's like, they rank them beginning of the year, and then you can only go a certain distance up or down based on where you rank them. Like, that doesn't make any sense, and that's all name and whatever. I don't know. They should be top 25. Here's one to think about. Given how last year went, if State wins out and wins the bowl game, realistic scenarios,
contract extensions for everybody.
Dave Doran will have won 9 games, 3 out of the last 4 years.
Oh my God, he might be a good coach.
Wouldn't that be? I mean, that's crazy.
I mean, look, it just proves my point that you want to be in the Coastal Division.
That is true. You do. You definitely want to be in the Coastal. He would be a Coastal champion.
That I mean, I with that win over Liberty, is that the one that got him over? Did that move him ahead of? Was that Sheridan?
No, he's second. He's second. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, here's the thing: when you have NFL quarterbacks, you tend to win 8 to 9 games. Like, that's kind of, I would say, historically accurate. I bet that bears out. And I'm not saying that Leary is an NFL quarterback, but at least he has an NFL arm as talent wise. So, I think this is his best coaching job because, frankly, I mean, I think we all thought the season was over when Hockman had to be relied on. So he's doing a great job there. Is it going to be, geez, you know what? This is going to be freaking terrible. You know what's going to happen? We get 9 wins. And you know what's always going to happen? Everyone's going to come back and be like, should have been 10 wins each season. Look at that Miami game. Look at that Wake game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I wonder if that kind of crap's going to haunt him instead of people sitting back and being like, well, holy crap. Like, I don't think anyone had us going, what's our record in conference right now? 5-2? So if we finish out, we'd be 7-2. Is that right? Am I doing this math right? Something feels wrong with these numbers.
Something like that. I'm not exactly sure, but
no one had that going into the season, right? Like, I mean, I thought we were going to maybe be close to 500. We're 5-3. Sorry, 5-3 because of the VT loss. 7-3 at the end of the season would be just incredible from my standpoint. Do you remember what you had preseason for this team?
I have somewhere around 6-7 wins. I don't remember. I have to go back and look.
Probably because you're a coward, just playing at the averages. Jeez.
When I saw the schedule, right, then I was like, yeah, we can win a lot of these games. And I didn't expect us. I thought we'd be better than obviously last year. So I thought we would be better. But still, you're playing a full conference schedule. Everybody like, yeah, 6 wins. I'd be really happy. Like, Dave's about to win 8. He could win 9.
Let's just get 7 first.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. Anything can happen with Georgia Tech. They haven't played in a month. We saw what happened with Virginia Tech when they hadn't played.
Anything can happen with Syracuse. I mean, Syracuse. Okay, like, yes, they just got stomped by Louisville, but they also just took BC down 16-13, to the wire. They hung with Clemson for at least over a half. Right, that's something we haven't done in ages. They did get beat pretty badly by Liberty. They have it in them, I guess, to surprise, right? I think we all thought they were going to get just shit canned when they played Georgia Tech at that game, and then they won that one. So
their quarterback got hurt.
Oh, is that when that was?
No, just now, like just this weekend. So
are you serious?
We'll get into Syracuse. Yeah, we'll get into Syracuse later in the week, but they're going to be playing with
someone didn't do research.
Third or fourth. Yeah, well, we're not talking. We were just talking post game. So, but anyway, it's a hell of a coaching job by Dave, and I'll give Dave a lot of credit because, he after all that went bad last year, he reacted pretty quickly and brought in a completely new staff. And the fact that they're able to be where they are, given there was no spring, and I'll give Beck a pass. He didn't have a spring to install his offense. He's doing it on the fly essentially. There's a lot of things that went against them that could have been excuses that are not, right, or that haven't needed to be. So I'm happy with it right now. There's a couple questions we'll get into, but just the fact that Dave could be win 9 games for 3 out of 4 years would be just mind blowing, given all the criticism that he gets. Couple questions: was Malik Willis bad, or were we just good?
So I think what you saw is Malik Willis under significant pressure reverts to bad habits. On one of the podcasts, I think it was the IPS one with the Liberty beat writer, he did say that when he starts scrambling in particular, and he loses his fundamentals as far as like squaring up his body for his passes, that his passes start sailing high. And I think we saw that a lot throughout the game. I still think, like you saw it on some of those runs, man, he can be dynamic. And it's kind of easy to see why, if the other team isn't taking this guy seriously, it's easy to see why he has made a lot of plays. And I will say this, I wonder if that grinded out philosophy was a contributing factor. Like, it works, but they should have lost that VT game too. So I guess I'm kind of like not surprised that he didn't have an A+ game. I certainly didn't expect him to be, what was he, like 13 of 20 something? Yeah,
32, I think.
I mean, it's just, it's funny just watching two quarterbacks basically have their worst games of the season at the same time. Just usually doesn't happen like that, man.
Right. I agree. I think he's fine, but part of it was the game plan, and give the defense credit. They kept him in check. Should we abolish the RSN? Yes, that's an easy question.
What? I mean, like, were we even watching bad. Like 360p?
It's crazy that in 2020 fans can't watch the game they want to watch. Like, somehow you're resorting to hacked streams, and the fact that you can't go and pay the ACC $9 a month to watch your team play its games, stream it to your phone or whatever. Like, that's crazy town.
I was thinking today how I would pay $10, $120 a year, whatever the number comes out to be, $10 a month to get just an all 22 shot of the game. And then you could just pipe in the local radio.
Yeah.
Right. I would accept that. I would pay you more for that, so I could always be able to see the game instead of having to do this nonsense. And then that just goes directly to the school. Like, I mean, NC State should just offer that up. Like,
somebody should. Somebody should. Who was our best defensive back? Who is the best defensive back?
Tyler Baker-Williams.
Yeah, he played the best for sure.
He can do it all. He just seems like, and now that he's back kind of in his rhythm, I think you're just seeing it all over the field. I don't even know who I would pick kind of other than that, because everyone else seems to have up and down games, and I refuse to choose Engel because I'm just so tired of losing him 50% of the time. So
yeah, that's frustrating. My thing with the defensive backs was somebody had tweeted us after the game and said, we were talking about Bailey Hockman not playing well. And then Aiden White got a pick in this game. And Dave came out and said that Aiden White had 3 picks in practice. Like, this is what he said his post game. And so somebody said, was Aiden White in Bailey Hockman's head? And I was like, maybe he was. Maybe Bailey played so bad in practice. Like, I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, the question is was Aiden White playing on scout team against Bailey, or was he playing on scout team against, I assume, Finley? Or,
right, yeah, sure.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But at the same time, it's like, hey, man, like, if your dude's producing like that, let's get him in there a little quicker. What was good is maybe because he was playing like that, I don't think they shifted Tyler Baker back there at all. So
right.
I don't know. That's interesting. Now Duffy was a walk-on, right? So I think he's like an automatic candidate to get a scholarship. I think I thought I saw that somewhere that they were going to give him one regardless. But I mean, I thought like Aiden White, like in particular, like just seeing these freshmen playing that shouldn't be playing and making plays is always exciting. And we didn't see it last year. So like just keep finishing out strong. We'll see what happens after the season as far as the transfer portal. I mean, I got a feeling either one or two guys are going to leave to go elsewhere, or maybe their careers might be finished from injury. So if we can keep the core of this defense together, though, outside of Aleem, it's, very exciting going into next year.
I agree. At the end of the day, nobody's going to remember the details in this game. Take the W and move on. And that is what we are going to do.
Boom.
That's all I got. Go Pack.
Go Pack.